So let's continue. Today we're going to put Apple on the map. So just a quick recap. We're building the stage, invite other players and the top 100 significant individuals or businesses, big or small, like startups, and any domains of AI, robotics, and the major application domain in the financial sector, like the banks, and the medicals, and healthcare, all the lawyering part, right? And maybe the intersection of regulatory compliance, right? And of course the consumer, like AI and robotics, kind of the given part, right? It's always there. Yeah, so Apple is more of the like iPhone, right? It's the iPad. It started from Steve Jobs. So, but we need to put a figure, a face, represent Google. Who should we put? I think Tim Cook, the current CEO. I'm gonna get from the Wikipedia, snatch it. Okay, so okay, here, Tim. Should we put Steve here as well? Kind of a bit struggle here. Yeah, let's put Steve as well. He was too significant to not be on the chart, right? Okay, let's do that. One sec. Okay, here is Steve Jobs. Let's snatch it. Yeah, Steve Jobs 2010, right? That's iPhone 4, right? Okay, let's do that. Okay, let's make it a little no longer visas, right? So what should we do? All right, let's leave it like this, right? Can we give it a border? Can we give it a border? Can we add a border? Okay, let's leave it. Right, just okay, let's come here and add Steve Jobs. Okay, I'll leave it like that, right? What are we really talking about today, right? We have done Elon Musk, a group of companies, right? And he's gonna push out the Grok 4, I guess, right? And the Neuralink is making good good breakthroughs, right? It's going to really expand production, and also on the Optimus, the robot side, and IPO Tesla. He's going to, I think, working on the energy, like from the solar energy in the sky. Right? That's really a good move, right? The Boring Company and a lot of stuff, right? And he also gonna break a case. I think they're gonna put Sam Altman eventually. It's in California, right? The court accepted. It's gonna start the hearing, right? We also investigate a bit of the Mark Zuckerberg Meta, right? The acquisition of miners. Hopefully he can pull it through, but it's going to be a little, maybe get through the process of the Chinese kind of control, right? It has to be a bit of compliance process. I think they should come through, but you never know, right? They go through a process, right? Because miners, I don't know if you read Chinese stuff, according to what I can get, that it's the second category, right? They don't have to prevent you or stop you, but they will ask you to go through a process because you originated in China, right? Some of the algorithms, right? The protected part, right? Not sure if they use the data because miner is more like a framework. They are kind of shell. That is not very highly valued in that culture there. But we know, like in the West, is extremely important, right? More process, right? How the user is going to use the AI, right? That agentic AI part is also give it action, right? Maybe they're not going to stop it, but go through a little curve, right? That's that. We also look at the Google, obviously, the DeepMind. I think we put Eric and who is the other guy? Hasabis, right? What is the first name? So, and we look at the Microsoft as well, right? Google, Microsoft, and NVidia, Jensen Huang, right? In the CES. We try to spend some time now AMD, right, as well. Seems Fei Li teaming up there, kind of. But she's a very important figure in terms of AI robotics, right? She's investigating the world labs, the world model, right? And that's going to be really significant next step. If you remember, back in 20 7 up to 10, 12, right? ImageNet, right? It started in Berkeley, then got into Stanford, right? And then AlexNet, right? The Jeffrey Hinton professor in University of Toronto, right? Eventually used that, improved. Really, like Fei Li started kind of paradigm change, right? Shifting towards data. That's really driving not only these, deep neural networks and convolutional networks, right? It's really the data going to drive them. Right? And that's leading to the transformer, how the training, right? And, so on and so forth, right? Catching up like a fire, right? After today. Now, Fei Li is getting into next big thing, right? In terms of AI. Hopefully he can open a new door, right? In a spatial, physical kind of world way, right? you know, because of her kind of foresight and contribution, that's where NVidia kind of caught on, right? Given that image processing, large language model kind of stuff, right? Now, AMD is another player we need to look at, but kind of smaller, way smaller than NVIDIA. And after that was Intel, right? And the counterpart is China, right? There's a lot of quite few chip makers and designers, right? Like Huawei, Alibaba, also pretty good, right? ZAI we mentioned, right? LLM-powered, right? Moonshot's part, right? TikTok, and a bunch of others, right? We got to look at maybe more than 7 or 8 are significant. We need to observe, right? Now Google, right? My thought, Google, right? Probably should be the pioneer. But that really, I don't know. Maybe a slightly catchy title, the iPhone moment of AI age, right? Or AI or robotics, right? Something like that. But in any case, we're not making any sort of products, right? And big show, try to. I saw a lot of, oh my God, you break through, you change the whole world, surprise, shocked. I don't know what those kind of titles going to do. A lot of those videos and shows there. I think for me, just sharing my thinking. I don't really have anything to really maybe making it more consumable. But in any case, I will just share what I'm thinking through. Right? Yeah, more realistically, it's like a pivot, right, towards the physical AI and ambient robotics. That is the term coined, if you know, one of the legend iPhone designer called Jony Ive, right, from Britain. They started IO. We mentioned that in acquisition to get into the OpenAI some model, right? And then joined to lead the design part of some devices. Right? The ambient robotics, more like not invasive, kind of even passive, right? Sitting there quietly, right? Reactive, but really pushing in when it events triggers that, right? Ambient, that's what it means, right? But I thought Google should be the pioneer there, right? It has the market base, right? A consumer product like iPhone, iPod, iPads, this, that, right? Oh, that's really started by Steve Jobs, right? But unfortunately, I don't see that Apple leading, right? It seems I'm pretty sure they have a grandiose, right, really big vision, a lot of strategies ongoing. They are they're very solid. They don't want to release something half they work because they have a large customer base, right? I don't know much, but I really do a bit of research that I can using the tools available to me. That's what I'm going to report here. For those who have time to kind of go through, please do. Right? We're going to take you through a process here, looking through both sides, the perspective of the U.S. And how the China side is going to look at it. Same thing, but different view. You get different picture, different opinion, if you will. And I'm not sure which one is true, which one is. And that's probably my way. Like I look both sides at least, right? So that's really the major idea, right? And compared to like we mentioned, right, the other players in this area of physical AI and ambient robotics, right? I think iPhone probably the likely going to be the leader somehow, but if you're falling behind, don't be surprised, right? I think they could be in a little challenge, right? Not how the team is a good logistic person, right? A very strong leader, but in terms of product innovation, as we know, right, we call it very incremental enhancement, right? Like squeezing the toothpaste, as people, quoting it, right? I don't really see any major breakthrough, but they are doing like chips, a home pod, and you know that, right? iPhone Air is kind of good, very thin, right? Now they got into a board or phone, right? Maybe iPhone 18, if they still have that, and yeah, I mean, they're doing good, very solid, right? TV, that, right? And we're gonna take a slightly more strategic analysis kind of thing. Like, just say if you are starting a business, right, getting this AI, physical AI, or ambient robotics, right? So your exit, out two majorly either go IPO. Not sure how easy that is going to be. It has to a lot of funds sustain you, right? And the other is just acquisition, right? Hopefully you complement like Apple, you do the innovation, you prove it, right? Then you can be like acquired, right? Like many of those, right? That's a good strategy, right? And Jony Ive, right, doing that, they made a lot of money, right? That's good. That's good path to success, right? A lot of people doing that, right? Just investigate who and apart from John, right, are actually doing that, right? I think another kind of innovation, it's not innovation, it's like incremental, right? Siri, right? Everybody try to get into the operating system concept. Some even try the browser is kind of really, interesting. But a lot of opportunity. Let's explore some. Right? Okay. This what DeepSeek can give me, right? It's more like very cursory kind of quick search, right? It put together something like pivot to physical AI, right? The challenge, however, like Apple in China, for example, right? You know that through OEM kind of global manufacturing supply chain, right? They try to migrate some of the capacity of producing iPhone and iPad as hardware thing, right? And India, I'm not sure how successful they are. Tata Group, right? They're doing good, and Vietnam, but really, majority or 90% of the actual components still from China, right? And given the staging example, that those two, just using those two, like other part of the world, Mexico or Malaysia or any other part of the world, could also like even some factory in the US as well, right? It's like the infrastructure, right? How the supply chain is going to come together, the stability of the labor, really not just labor skilled discipline, right? Labor, right? And also the engineering level and the energy level, right? You're not going to just outage of every day, every week, even every month. Is too much, right? So probably their strategy is gonna. You have to go through a bit of test. I don't know how successful that migration is, right? But eventually they want to manage that risk, geopolitics and tariff and stuff, right? Now, China is not only a manufacturer part of the supply chain, but also a huge market for iPhone. But now they tried kind of solving thing, right? It require, you might need, if you have AI, you might need to use a local AI like Baidu, right? It's counterpart of Google, right? They have AIs, right? You might have to partner with them or Alibaba, whichever, right? You pick. And the data has to stay there, right? Anything to do with algorithmic and training data, all that stuff. The large regulations there. it's not, think about it. The US banned Huawei altogether. Right? It's, that bit of restriction is reasonable, I'll say that. But again, it's kind of a challenge, right? You have to, same thing with like Europe. You also have, forgot the whatever the kind of regulations as well, right? You have to comply. But essentially, it's a very competitive landscape, some ecosystem you need to watch out, right? So let's have a quick in a very visual way, like 2026, AI will get kind of physical, right? There's going to be some paradigm shift from cloud to device is one, from big to small to monoculture to kind of micro, right? Fracturing, breaking it apart in a smaller environment with less memory, less processing power. And also everybody try to owning that, not just the brain or the engine. You need the wheels and, and hands and eyes to agentic. You need to take action, do something, right? The other side, like Meta, if you look at it, right, they're gonna put the WhatsApp, Instagram, and many others onto the miners layer, right? Same thing with Google. Same thing with like Microsoft. It's all competing, right? OpenAI, obviously, they're gonna move very fast on that. That slight kind of variation of that is we try to get into enterprise. Not sure how Google got enterprise, but we probably stay in the consumer electronics part, right? The other part of it would be the chips, right? Like Google Grok, right? 20 billion. The acquisition happened, right? NVidia brought up the chip maker Grok, right? To address the high speed kind of processing needs of AI agent, right? GPUs, right? High speed inferences, right? In any case, this like a warfare, right? Acquisition merge is really kind of, you have to think like a wall, right? You have to really get into the market first, right? First mover always have a lot of advantage, right? Obviously, there's another way to look at the challenge part, right? We mentioned it's more like a cold war, right? It's like a warfare in some way, right? The battling for this hardware and protection, the ecosystem sovereignty kind of stuff, right? Look at it, right? The kind of fracture, right? I don't know really how EU gonna catch up in terms of the technology innovation, but certainly regulation they catch up very quickly. They probably the most tightly regulated market. Right? On the other side, China protecting like everything with sovereign, make it domestic, self-sufficient, right, at least, right? US have a lot of sanctions against others, but they are the big player. They are really on the other side. They try to get into the other market more freely, right? They lobby on that. They have their moves and try to make the market get set the standard and so on and so forth, right? If you look at it, the Google Android XR glasses, right? And Meta released the glasses, right? And on the edge, you have many of them, right? Try to grab the computing. We mentioned about the Jony Ive, the I/O, right? This got by OpenAI. The others like agentic AI is like a walled garden, right? You look at Google, right? Gemini. They try to integrate everything, right? On the other side, Apple, right? Try to prioritized on-device processing, lock the user in, right? So that's really, you can see that. Yeah. So specifically talking about Google, right? They're really playing kind of catch up. I'm kind of feeling they're a little bit of too incremental, nothing really breakthrough, right? That's not very encouraging to the investors, right? To the stock market, right? Consumers may sense a bit of fatigue, right? Look at it, right? Especially this quarter of 2026, they have to prove that they are capable of moving with speed, right? The AI problem, right? It's really playing catch up. Do they have a large language model or anything like that? No. A partner with OpenAI, I guess, right? The Siri stagnation, right? Some deeper issues yet to be discovered, but they try to fix that. Right? We're going to see very soon. I might have some time to report on that, but I don't like to just be on the moment. I like to sit back and observe and see what is really like logic from the product, from the market, or from the company. I mean, they can have a lot of, like in the China side, watching this 7 or 10 big companies CEO debating, come together, various forums. They kind of pat each other's back and see what doing open source, like they're feeling good, but really, like, how do you make money? That's still a problem, right? How do you sustain that, right? Unless you have a very entirely different approach, ecosystem, you put AI right into the manufacturing. And that's also, AI is more like the science part. You can engineer that and realize the value. Right? Maybe that's the case, but otherwise, right? The closed source, the sounds may not so glory, right? But but makes money, right? And also produce powerful models, right? I think right after the Spring Festival, together, the DeepSeek may release a new model like fall or something, right? I'm really looking forward to some breakthrough on Queen as well, and quite a few others, right? They have a lot of papers published. If you have time to read it, patents, right? They have so many startups. However, I think it's still a little hazard for the entrepreneurs. They don't really have a mature capitalization, the investment, the market making, right? Consumer habit, how the enterprise is going to embrace it. You cannot everything rely on the national state-owned companies, right? Give you a policy, right? That's not way to do that, right? But in any case, but you cannot really. You have to look at it from a different angle. Right? They are, for the past 30, 40 years, right? At least majority of the time, they're really copying, right? But now, only in the maybe latest decade or 10 years, or they're catching up really aggressive. Right? Maybe in the past 5 years, they're really good, right? In some domains, they're leading, especially in the AI and robotics, right? They have a lot of innovation. But really, the changing the market behavior, changing the consuming kind of pattern, how people use the AI robotics, right? It's not easy, right? They don't like the subscription model. But then how do the smaller companies or the innovators survive, right? Like why Miners has to run? Because you cannot survive there, right? And you run, they might catch you, right? Because you're breaking some other regulatory stuff, right? It's kind of like they have to fix that, right? But it's not easy to fix people's behavioral kind of habits, right? The market is not made in a day, right? It is hard. For example, they might be very advanced in kind of mobile payment, but because they skip the phase of, they don't have a lot of credit card, right? They're very short. We got into the mobile computing part, right? Payment and so on and so forth. But if you follow the US or Europe, right, they go through like 30 years or more, right? The customer being trained, right? They know how to discipline their behaviors, right? They have processes. They have a lot of discipline, right? But China don't have that. I don't know if you get the point. Point is that they are not really grown up organically. They copied quite a bit, and then they jump into the leading edge. Therefore, they're still skipping a lot of steps, right? So, for example, the consumers haven't learned how to grow the innovations, right? Play a part, right? They just try to rip it for free, right? Open source. And of course, but it's stronger, it's free, capacity-wise comparable. But again, question is, how do you sustain that, right? Is it really the best strategy? Right? You might get a lot of good words, right? Praise, right? They glorify it, but again, this business is business, right? They have to make money, otherwise they're not able to sustain. Look at DeepSeek. They don't really make much money, I guess, using that language model. They do make some, right, but not a lot, right? What they're making money is using that in the financial domain. They still like the team is only a branch of quantum, some sort of fund, right? That's where the investors get money initially build up, right? So if they rely on the domestic investors, do you think they can produce the DeepSeek? No way, and not even able to sustain that, right? Many others, the same thing, right? That is the problem I think China needs to fix, right? It's not a policy. It's not like you're making a rule. It's not like, you give an order. You have to change people's behavior. The market has to mature up. The way you collaborate has to be a little disciplined, contractual kind of, you have to obey the rules, right? Not just taking shortcuts, right? Because otherwise, it doesn't matter how many innovations you have, it's like a walled garden, right? You have to really get into the way that allow the entrepreneur, allow the innovation, allow the startup, the fintechs, whatever, to go through the life cycle and the maturity cycle. The capital has to flow in the right way. The consumer has to play a part, right? The market has to be working in a coordinated way, right? So that takes time to really build it up. Yeah, I mean, don't want to go too deep. We can look into the major players. We're going to spend some time each. I might distill my talks there. You're going to see what is the problem, what is the resolution, how people are sensed. We're talking about what I observe that because in Chinese, right, a lot of places to see that. It's hard to, if I put into English, I don't know if anybody, if not, maybe very few actually understand, right? Or make sense or needs to know, right? But if you want to think, right, collaborate or learn from there, or even check, do they copy your stuff or you want to copy their stuff, right? Want to buy some of the innovations or IPs or small startup, you need to pay some attention, right? So it's not an easy thing to do. Not what you think they right? You could be very off the reality. The reason I can see that because I've observed two worlds, right? I think probably know each sufficiently kind of well, right? Okay, now we'll come back to this visual, right? Yeah, I'm pretty sure that the black many of the features Apple promise, right? Like Apple Intelligence, it's kind of keep delaying, right? Some other like iPad, iPhone, foldable iPhone, smart glasses, home robot, all kind of stuff, right? Yeah, I mean, hopefully they can come back, right? They have 2 billion devices already on the market, right? Privacy and user experience, they have a lot of data, right? But they try to complete, the main event is going to be right now, okay, 2026 spring, right? The LLM-powered is going to overhaul, right? Will enable conversations using Google Gemini, competing, right? Possibly using Google Gemini. Then they better a new physical AI hardware, right? Some of the roadmap. Okay. Going forward, they have a twist. Okay. OpenAI, as I said, right? Let's see. What OpenAI try to prove is not a subsidiary of Microsoft, right? Microsoft invested in OpenAI heavily, but what some other money try to say that I'm not part of them, right? Well, I'm independent. I'm bigger than them, right? They're doing all kinds of. They're not a purely engineer or entrepreneur in a innovation way, right? Not like others, right? He's politically driven. He knows how to, allocate. I think we need all kind of talent. He's one of them top talent. Right? Well, observe him, closely. Once I build up the stage, and then whatever I throw on, maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes, it will make sense to you. Because otherwise, I don't know if it would make sense. I'd rather to see them to sink in a bit than try to decipher it, rather than using catchy phrases and tell you this, surprise, that breakthrough, that shocked. No, not really. Many of them maybe looks very exciting, very flashy, but doesn't really matter, right? Let's put a little number there, right? 6.4 billion acquisition, right? You can see there, right, shaking hands. That's tells us something about Apple, right? Apple obviously it's something that not so right? You have to fix that, right? The talent running, why? That's a problem, isn't it? Okay, this is something that we need to look through quickly. There's a lot of conflict. We look at it. Is it iPhone moment or is it Nokia moment, right? Anxiety, right? Will Google become another Nokia? I don't know, right? But if they keep delaying that problem, or they cannot really show us, stop the toothpaste squeezing, they're able to innovate, then eventually we'll be really kind of, that kind of disappointment will build up, right? The pivot is that they are really focused on integration and just invention, right? But they have to innovate, okay? They might say physical AI or robotics for 2027, right? They're gonna do some partners with OpenAI, Google, right? Some physical here and there. If you remember the alphabet thing, right? Kind of thinking, right? Or the whole stack kind of thinking. They have to find their domain, right? The space to innovate in, to fill up the market needs, right? I mean, the opportunities that we need startups for sure, right? There are a lot of spaces. The workflow is quite clumsy. We need a lot, right? We need specialized vertical. You cannot ask Google to be everything. Right? The medical diagnosis, right? The industry automation, and in the field, a lot of research, like in the math, even in the kitchen, in the bar, right? You need a lot of innovation. You cannot ask Google to do everything. Not any of the big companies have that kind of capacity. That's where, you need innovators, you need startups, right? You need entrepreneurs, right, to get in. It's a huge, huge, huge space. I always say that. Right? One of the purpose I evaluate that, right, is try to, consult whoever my clients are, right, to provide credible. I have the things too. I kind of just, give them speeches that doesn't really help them or me. Like if I want to do something, what is the best spot, right? And I know it's going to work out, right? I know, meaning like, have a chance, probability. If I get like a billion, I'll give them a trillion. Like, for example, if I can handle that, obviously, right? Even 100 times sort of return, it's good enough, right? So, the perception, right, of the Apple become, bit of falling behind, not in their DNA anymore, right? Look at Apple, right? OpenAI, the stack here, right? They are favorite, they like, prefer integration, fine, but you do have to innovate. I keep saying that word, right? Look at it. They try to get Siri relaunch. Very soon, hopefully, that's a break point, right? For iPhone. The wall-mounted smart home, the tabletop robot, right? Smart glasses. Yeah, I mean, these are good. Yeah, even more agentic Siri, okay, more like a Google conductor, right? You have a framework, you can execute tasks that talk. I tried it, doesn't really work really well, right? And frankly speaking, the voice recognition, like using diction, right? Even Google is supposed to be good, but I find like DeepSeek, like the WeChat is better. Maybe for me, I cannot say that. But at least I tried it many times. The WeChat, which is DeepSeek based, works really good, right? Okay. NPU. Wow. All right. 2 a.m. 0 latency. Wow. Okay. Here's the challenge. EO, DMA. Okay, that's the thing. Digital Market Act, right? And the US DOJ. Right? The privacy paradox, right? Paradox, right? China, obviously, right? They want everything sovereign, domestic. And here's the embedded or ambient, right? The iPhone moment. Are we getting the iPhone moment? Right? Yeah, let's see. They have the advantage. They have the market, 2 billion, devices there. Okay. They again try to do the OS. It's all good thinking. I guess everybody, right? That's where we get it from, right? Okay, let's look at it another way. Pivot. Right? The hardware, the geopolitical vectors, right? The agentic ecosystem, the intelligence embedded, right? Sovereignty, algorithmic sovereignty. That's an interesting word, right? And executive summary, the iPhone moment. Right? The industry is transitioning from a centralized AI to physical and on the edge, on the device, right? From the thinking, the LLM to the action, right? And physical intelligence, physical AI, right? They're going to launch the HomePad, right? Can you look at it? They all get into this physical agentic intelligence, right? Meta, they have layer building, right? By acquisition. Anthropic, obviously, Google, right? They're building that top-up GPUs and this and that, Gemini. OpenAI is facing some sort of immerse. It's pretty quiet in the Las Vegas, the consumer electronics show, but I guess they're doing something right behind the scenes. Maybe try to surprise the market, right? I heard they're doing some sort of operating system like, or kind of, I don't know really. I have to dig it out, right? There's some shows on the YouTube somewhere. I don't know how credible they are, right? Okay, so this is what I coined, right? The wall of merger and acquisition, right? So that's what I'm trying to put robotics, AI, related as my innovation, if you will, right? This in the Chinese meaning, I sell, I buy, same thing, right? Startup talents is one of my emphasis, right? Not only the businesses, right? You just brought up the whole company just in order to get that one person, right? Some iPhone Air, bit of innovation, thinner, better. The portable Horizon M5 silicon dominance, right? Let's see how it compared to the Huawei or the Samsung one, right? Pretty sure they produce solid product, right? But now Siri, right? Closed world reasoning. Okay. Privacy centric. Okay. Strategic lock-in. They didn't know the state of your app is far safer than the cloud. Sure, yeah. But the Meta's acquisition is try to do exactly that. Right? The cloud brain, the detection that you need to be the concept of the off app kind of storage, right? Processing power on the device is going to become important, right? Here's illustration of physical AI, right? I think HomePad, right, is going to come out. And here's the body, brain, nerves, and eyes and hands. A lot of opportunity. A bigger AI, right? The Optimus, the Atlas, and China part, right? They're all playing the big part, right? Okay, again, it's like, well, as you can see, they have their own kind of fractured world, right? And the chip wall, OpenAI still, we don't know. We have to see, right? DeepSeek, Queen, how they're going to sustain. I mean, yeah, probably, right? Let's see. Is supply chain resilience? Right? I don't know. Here's where the invisible fabric. Really, the infrastructure, the energy is the ultimate determinant, right? If you think like a wall, that's the real deterrent, right? If you don't have the infrastructure, don't have the electricity, power, you're dying, right? I think what's probably Elon Musk's next move. That's very smart move, right? But this is, that we know that we move from the chatbox to the agent, right? From cloud to the device, right? You need sensors, they know the intent, right? New chips, new architecture, obviously. the Chinese side, the European, they all have some risks. But from the European or China side, US also present a lot of risks, right? So it is kind of fractured a little. Okay. Yeah, it's another way look at what we mean by physical AI, right? It's a hand. You see how many engineering innovation, right, will have to really throw in, right? Every hand is different, every move is different, right? Like human, you have to be able to lift a stone as well. You have to be able to pick up an egg, right? You know, you have to pull a needle or through, something, right? It is quite. Apart from that, we're going to see there are challenges as well, right? The phone, like not just the display thing, right? You have to be able to run this AI, right? From just seeing become understand and processing, right? The sovereign edge, right? The battle for supremacy has shifted to edge. Google pushes ubiquitous, right? But Apple has an advantage. They try to monetize the sovereign devices, the hardware sovereignty, to monetize the privacy. They give you the privacy. And here's the industry body. Startup like Agility Robotics, they deploy physical AI labor, say million, but in China even more, everywhere, right? From mines to restaurants, from the dockland, the shipment, to manufacturing rockets, right? Assembly line, you name it, hospitals, right? Obviously office, right? But again, they're deeply integrated into the manufacturing industry. Right? That's one thing that I don't see that in America yet, or the Europe. Yeah, we don't want to close it over. Like they have a lot of regulation. Geopolitically, they're fractured. Right? I would say that. We're going to see Europe have the digital, some sovereignty kind of stuff, right? China want everything to be controlled. Okay, and yeah, the reason we put this on chart is that quite a significant event, right? It signals that Apple must be, what's wrong, right? Why you lose the talent? Not only Jony Ive, but many other talents are running, right? Not only the customer feel the fatigue, kind of disappointment, but your own talent, right, running, right? That's not a good sign. The rise of embodied AI, you look at from top to bottom, right? Eyes, the ear, obviously the control, the sensing part, the need, the logistics, the handling, you look at that, right? The Atlas, right, the Optimus in China, that Yushu, right? Yushu, Unitree, and Xiaopeng, many, right? So each of them worthy our, we're going to spend some time to survey them, about 10, 20 robotics companies. Hopefully, some of them will end up a winner, right? Technical deep dive. Obviously, they need Wi-Fi, right? They need capacity to dispersing this many signals really almost in real time, right? They need standardization, right? They have to solve the last meter or last millimeter problems, right? Have to be very precise. And here's mathematical equation, right? Sure, they try to solve in the blind spot kind of problem with machine learning, right? And like imagine little robot, okay? It has blind spot, right? And give you mathematical equation, right? And again, so different companies fighting the war from the different angles. Here's the Apple M5, right? Chips, right? The physical pivot is robotics going to be the new centerpiece, and the tabletop home devices is planned for 2027, from service to sovereignty. I like that phrase. It's pretty catchy, right? Essentially, you want to monetize the privacy, the capacity to run on devices such as iPhone or glasses, right? Insulating from cloud costs and also privacy. That's important. Agentic privacy. Home OS, they certainly don't want you to send their bedroom pictures online, right? Okay, right? So Apple and Huawei, they go different ways, right? And also the regulatory is like strangling, right? EU is fragmenting the user experience, right? They have the Digital Market Act, right? They call geofencing, okay, or data residency, or sovereignty cloud, and again, Apple explicitly cite the risk of invalid apps like the hot tap kind of thing, right? They have to go through the store kind of surveillance, if you will, cleansing, right? Monitoring before they even allowed it to be get into EU, right? Otherwise, you face big fines, right? It is kind of fractured, right? But anyway, that's the reality. Here's another angle. Look at Huawei. But again, 10 chip makers. China not a majority, but they have a lot. Right? We can put in we can spend some time put on the invite the individuals, put on the stage, right? So that we can make sense of it. The builder who is constructing 20. Okay, the data infrastructure, right? The Cortex AI. Okay, agnostic, egocentric, okay. Multimodal, embedded intelligence, the industry automation, and Tesla. Okay, you know that they have huge plants, right? They run the line. They deliver the metal part in 4 days, right? The space and defense, obviously, right? No labs doing that simulation, and biotech and science. DeepMind, they have. Okay, they also have the B12 labs, right? The pilot for chemical recipes. Many of them using to discover new drugs, right? Doing scientific research. Labor. Okay, that's another big thing that Elon Musk claimed. We're gonna really give updates, right? AI. I wish that true. Comparative analysis. The AI ecosystem. Google. Okay, they have ubiquitous integration, cloud first, data access, and Huawei is more like a state or a strong networking side, a 5G, they have plenty of energy, engineers. How many engineers they have, like PhD? And maybe close to 60% of them. How many? Not a million, but a lot. Many thousand, 50, 60, 70,000. Apple is again on device, right? The M5 privacy first, the robotics iPhone wearable, this is their stronghold, right? But they have challenges losing some market share in China and regulatory frictions in the EU. See? And kind of sum it up, the horizon is kind of agentic. It's physical, from reading, thinking to doing, right? The sovereign hardware, the physical sense, the robotic bodies, right? Yeah, there's different angle to look at the same thing, right? The spatial thing, like the world view, world lab, world model, you name it, right? So for the CCLE, Young LeCun and these innovators, professors, and entrepreneurs, right? Don't know how to categorize them. They're multi-title, right? Many hats, contribute there, lead us to a new future, right? Even focusing on the hand, you can find more than 10 entrepreneur, a startup, really good in China, right? Yeah, I mean, it's already an hour. We can continue tomorrow. Hopefully, it kind of makes sense to you why we do this. We need to understand strategically what they are doing, not just the surprise news or fantastic whatever the movement. It has to make sense, right? And not try to be part of the cheerleader. Right? We have to think through and see. If you put them together in a stage, you're gonna observe them, right? You can see who is true, who is real, who is fake, right? Who's gonna be the winner? You can see, you can tell, right? And if there are gaps, can you fill it, or can you point them to partner with others, right? You have to be honest. Think through that. Be kind of you have to see money, the real data, right? They can make sense of it. Then whatever happens, you can immediately make sense of it. Plug into the big picture. If you don't know the big picture, really, it's hard for you to tell. They're all important. They're all exciting. They're all making good things, like Google phone, Google Gemini phone. Apple have 17, 18. Oh my God, there's a lot of stuff that's coming on our way. Right? There's no perfection here, right? It's a moving high-speed train, right? We have to really move with it, right? And not try to make something perfect. We're just tagging along, right? And you have to have a purpose, right? Because otherwise none of this is even relevant other than you want to buy an iPhone, right? But I think Google, is the Apple, like Tim Cook, right? It should be the first runner in the physical AI, AI on device, sovereign privacy, hardware. Hopefully, right? They should start some acquisition if they cannot innovate internal, right? Otherwise, really, that fatigue is built up not only in the market, not only the consumer, but even their employees going to start to run. That's not a good sign, right? And that probably, Tim Cook is a strong leader, right? Do they need a new leader or new strategy or something? The market will tell, right? Let's see, right? We'll continue tomorrow. Thanks.
人生几何？譬如朝露去日苦，